Fabulous. I think
Yeah.
that's our sign to go, Kieran.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. You're all very welcome to what is our final webinar of the year, Sisense Top Features. My name is Connor McIntyre. I'm the Business Development Executive here at Data Builders. Alongside me, I have, of course, Kieran Kirk, who is our Operations Director, among many other hats he wears here at Data Builders.
Morning.
Before we kick off, I'd like to take a minute just to run through the agenda and what you might expect from today. Kieran, if you might move on there. So very simply, it's important that, as you all might not be familiar with us, I'd like to give a bit of a background as to who we are and what we do before I hand over to Kieran to take you through the 2023 updates from Sisense. He'll also have a short demonstration as well after. And of course, if there's any questions or queries that crop up at all throughout the webinar, please feel free to put them in the chat or to reach out to myself directly afterwards. So, who are we? Initially, 21 years ago as IMGS, we started by providing GIS solutions, and more recently have developed that out to provide a much broader scope of data solutions as data builders. So at Data Builders, we have the expertise and solutions to align with your business goals and create a single source of truth, granting you access to the full power of your data. Through our strategic partnerships with industry-leading BI and data intelligence tools, we've created a complete 360 data solution with the ability to scale with you as you grow. Our solutions already helps automate data flows and build data insights for a wide array of customers, including government agencies, marketing companies, pharmaceuticals, ed tech, transport, utilities, financial, you name it. It could go on, but the one thing they all have in common is that they trust us and our partner technologies to help propel them forward. As you can see, the three core pillars of our data intelligence platform are FME, which is by Safe Software. This is our data integration platform, where we see a lot of success with this at companies we've worked with throughout the years. In particular, is where they need, where they have data transformation, data migration, data manipulation requirements. And one of the big pieces with FME is to then automate these workflows, which is great for. In the middle, you have Data Galaxy, which is our data governance platform. This is our latest partnership actually, and we're really excited by it as it's quite an elegant solution to the topic of data governance, which is an issue that we've been hearing crop up more and more frequently, kind of across the board. Everyone we're speaking to is starting to really consider getting a firm handle on their lineage and governance as a whole. So expect to hear a lot about this in 2024 if you haven't already. And of course, to the right, we've got Sisense, which is our solution for BI analytics and advanced visualizations. Particularly strong tool, of course, in the embedded analytics market, so within your apps and within customer-facing applications. Big use case here is when companies are selling their analytics to their end user, also known as data monetization. Aside from that, of course, is an excellent BI tool in and of itself, which I've no doubt you're all already well convinced by, which is why you're here and hoping to see a bit more of it today. So that is us. That's Data Builders in a nutshell. If I can be of any assistance to you after today, please don't hesitate in reaching out to me. I'm here as a resource to you should any of the above strike a chord, or you want to learn more about anything we've mentioned so far, or that Kieran will mention throughout the webinar today. So with that, I'll hand over to Kieran now, as I know he's chomping at the bit here to get going, to take us through Sisense top features for 2023.
Thanks, Connor. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, so we just want to talk about Sisense, but just to introduce Sisense to anybody who's new on the call. What we have found in the industry over the last few years with analytics is that a lot of organizations still have printed reports, still do standalone dashboards, and actually still email each other screenshots. But as humans today, we live in context. We have personalized data and personalized information coming to us wherever we are. So that's what we really want from our analytics. And because that's not happening, there has been a lack of analytics adoption. But the Sisense way is to provide automated intelligence in context analytics based on what people do in their native apps. Personalize that data story in business applications and workflows that drive data-driven outcomes. And then, as Connor mentioned, being able to deeply embed analytics in apps where people spend their time. So this morning I'm going to run through the top features to 2023 from Sisense. So again, Sisense had about 9 releases during the year. Big focus on security this year, big focus on the administration side of the application and making it easier to use and making it more secure across multiple tenants and multiple users and multiple organizations. So I'll touch through some of the key points and then I'll give you a demonstration. Firstly, on the build and connectors, a nice change. Anybody who's had Elastic Cubes that are building during the night or building offline, sometimes you can get a build error. So it could be, the connection fails. It could be it runs out of memory, whatever it is. Now with Sisense, you can add an option to the build configuration. Now it's done through the admin, so you have to go into the admin to turn this on and into the service configuration admin. And this is where I call the Harry Potter trick to get into that back additional admin component. You have to click on the Sisense button, the icon 5 times to get into these additional settings. I don't know why they do this, but they do. So in there, you can tell Sisense to try and rebuild the Elastic Cube for many times, to have it go, once, twice, 3 or 4 times. So if something was a small issue, like for argument's sake, it was just a connectivity and it failed, that you could then retest in 5 minutes time. And that's why you can also set the retry time. So you can say, well, actually wait 20 minutes, then try the retest. And then you might say set 3 retries or whatever you want. So that's a real help for anybody who's building large data in their Elastic Cubes, probably running them during the night when they're offline, so that you can actually get the system to restart itself and go again if an issue happened. A small thing when you're connecting the CSV files has now been added is the ability in the CSV settings. So when you make a connection in the Elastic Cube to the CSV file, there was always things like being able to ignore the first row, setting the delimiter for the CSV, but now you can also tell the connector to ignore empty columns. So instead of them coming up in your data preview, all these useless columns with no information in them, the connector will now ignore them if you turn that option on, which is very useful. As I mentioned, there's been big improvements in Sisense to support better security, because a lot of organizations now, because of GDPR, because of data breaches, they have to be very careful of how you restrict access to your data. And the best way to do that is to have what's called multi-tenancy, where you can divide your customers by tenant, or you can divide your departments in your organization by tenant. And then when you split them by tenant, that means one can't jump from the other. Now, for a number of years, Sisense has had row level security and data groups security. So you can set up user groups and you can set up row level security. And that was really powerful to limit who could see what data. But more organizations now are looking for another level of security on top of that. And that's why there's a big drive for multi-tenancy. So with Sisense, there's now 3 ways to support multi-tenancy. So you got self-contained. So that's where you build in the application based with multi-tenancy with full isolation between the tenants. So that's where you can actually set up each tenant individually, where the dashboards, where the data stays within each tenant, and there's no ability to cross over. So that's a really powerful level of security. It is being required now by a lot of organizations who need to make sure that there is these walls between departments or customers. So again, Sisense is very much focused on embedded analytics and delivering analytics to customer organizations. So again, if you're like a supplier, of, let's say, your ASDA or whatever, and you've got all these different suppliers who are supplying you food groups and food products, and you want to provide analytics to those companies, you can't let one supplier see the other supplier's data. So you have to be able to have proper multi-tenancy. And by having self-contained multi-tenancy, it means you can have one single Sisense server, but you can split out each customer or each supplier or each department within that one tenant, within that one server. So you can have multiple tenants with multiple admin licenses, multiple dashboards, in each one, but no ability for a user to jump across a tenant. And that is a big driver now. I'm even seeing it on the ETL side, where customers are coming to us saying they want multi-tenancy when it comes to data integration, that you have flow lines that can't jump across. The historical way Sisense did multi-tenancy was through multi-instance, which is where you have a Sisense server for each tenant or for each customer. But that can get very expensive. So it's still there. It's still an option. And it can be used on bigger scale projects. And then finally, as I mentioned, we have internal capabilities in Sisense where you can build out using user groups and row level security, multi-tenancy yourself inside Sisense application. But that does mean you need to create the groups, create the roles, and it's not as it's more prone to an error than the self-contained or the multi-instance. And that's why organizations are driving towards this proper multi-tenancy when it comes to data management. Again, in the security area, we've now added in Sisense perspectives. So perspectives allow users to create submodels that are fully dependent on their parent data model, but they maintain the independence of their own logical and semantic elements. And then you can inherit the physical elements, and they support a single source of truth. And this is the big thing, without requiring a duplicate versions of the data model. So again, think of this security, think of how you've got your users set up. If you want to have different departments inside your organization, in this case, they're probably inside the one tenant, and you want to have slightly different views of the data for different departments, using perspectives, you can set up these different views without having to duplicate the data. So you're not doubling your cost of data storage, but you're actually able to create different views of the data for different departments using the same model. So again, really helping with these security changes to make it that organizations can set up Sisense however they need to from a security point of view. The next thing that came this year was the dynamic import query. Anyone who uses live connections, so that could be Snowflake, Redshift, SQL Server, PostgreSQL, would have known for years that Sisense have had what's called parameters for those live connections, so that the data coming in will change on the fly using those parameters. Again, it's an additional level of security, also additional level of being able to customize the data for each department and for each user. So with that, when the live connection is made, the live parameters will run and filter or restrict based on what's passed through. And one of the latest live parameters that was added is the ability in the import query from live to Elastic Cube that you can actually have a dynamic parameter in there as well. So each user will have different data coming in when they import the data. Again, means you don't have to build up different duplicates of your data in your Snowflake or your Redshift, that you can use these dynamic parameters to split the data out by department, by user. Again, you can see the trend here from a lot of these Sisense enhancements. In the last 2 years, Sisense improved their analytic engine by adding what they call the Sisense Analytical Engine that allows you to generate your query in a SQL dialect with a low no-code solution. So Sisense replaced how they do querying inside the engine about a year and a half ago. And the new engine is definitely more designed for databases, for cloud data warehouses, and it runs really, really fast. The analytical engine improves the performance of SQL queries by calculating measures from the same table simultaneously, and it performs caching per security rule and can be used by all users. So if you run, what that means is if you run a query once in your dashboard and someone then runs the same query, it will be cached on the server, it'll run faster. So that improves performance, and it applies filters once and for all widgets at the same time. So this is something that you will have noticed some old features might have stopped working over the last year and a bit. But as the move has been coming across to use the analytical engine, this is now driving all the capabilities in Sisense. It's really improved performance and really improved speeding up what you're doing. And with that move, we now have a new tool, which is called the Query Plan Analyzer. So anybody who's worked with Sisense and you have a many-to-many query that's going wrong, and you're looking at it and you're going, why is that? Where did that query go wrong? So historically, we would have used the Jackal view, the JQL view, and it would show you a simple map of how that widget connects to what table, and then you might be able to analyze where the query went wrong. But that was a very simple view. Now, because the analytic engine is now part of Sisense, Sisense have created what's called the Query Plan Analyzer. So it gives faster response times, but it shows a complete graph structure that represents the SQL query. So you can see with the graph on the screen here how in-depth it's doing, showing you the joins, showing you the aggregates, showing you where the data is coming from. That level of depth means when you're analyzing your performance issues, when you're analyzing issues with your system, you can now drill in even more, and that's really useful. It's only brought out in the last month, actually. Notebooks has been in Sisense for a while. So with notebooks, you can write your own code and generate charts. Excuse me. And supports Python or in SQL. Actually, there's a webinar on notebooks if you want to see it that we did last year, which shows you some of the functionality. At the time, it was only on live connections to data warehouses. This year, Sisense now have brought that out, that notebooks can be run on your Elasticube, so it doesn't have to be a live data warehouse. And it can also now be embedded in an iframe if you want to embed the notebook into your application. So for those people who like to use SQL, Python, or R, it means those users can run those languages inside Sisense and then create charts coming out of it. Notebooks, just to be clear, there is a differentiation between notebooks, and then if you ever look at the data model, there is a component where you can add custom code. That's where you can add in things like, it's called Juniper notebooks, Jupyter notebooks, sorry, where you can actually run machine learning algorithms from Jupyter inside Sisense. They're separate, they're not the same. They're two different ways of doing things. But with this one, you can actually visualize your charts using the notebooks in Sisense and create charts, which can then also now be brought into your standard dashboards. This year, we've seen a number of performance improvements. So the natural language query, which, or better known in Sisense as simply ask, where you can type in your commands and your questions and then get answers and charts generated, as you can see in the video on the screen. It's now 10 times faster. So this is a really useful self-service capability to be able to type in what a user doesn't know and generate a report from there, or a chart or a widget, and then even create a dashboard. So that's been made an awful lot faster. Another improvement on performance has been the introduction of the dashboard accelerator. So this is where the system will automatically generate aggregation tables from one or more dashboards. The tables function as temporary tables within the cloud data warehouse or external cache, and they can be set up to update at specified intervals. But you do need to build the destination B2D to be enabled on the Sisense side. So as you can see in the diagram, if you've got a cloud data warehouse, if you want to improve performance, you can have a kind of hybrid approach where these acceleration tables are stored in the Elasticube, they cache the data, and then you can run them for queries. So it's kind of like creating materialized views of your data using this functionality, and that improves the speed of your dashboards where you're connecting to really large data warehouses. Because you sometimes, particularly, you can see where you got customers with hundreds of millions of records. Maybe some of the queries can be very slow, or you're paying for an expensive, processing time on your cloud data warehouse to keep the queries fast. This is a nice halfway house where you can actually use the dashboard accelerator and the Elasticube functionality of Sisense to improve performance of your dashboards and cut down the cost of your cloud data warehouse. Okay, so I'm going to do a very quick demo of some of this functionality. So let me just bring that up. I'll bring up my system. Okay, so I'm in my little demo site here, and the first thing I want to do is just show you how I can make a build in a new Elastic Cube. So I'm going to call it Sisense 23. So you can see straight away, this is where build and destination can be turned on. So I could be using Elastic Cube, or I could be working with Redshift or Snowflake. So if I was wanting to do the accelerator, I would be picking one of these to use that functionality. But I'm just going to use the standard Elastic Cube now. So it creates the Elastic Cube. I can add my data as ever. So we can see now. Oh, it's a bit slow. Yeah. So I can pick my data. So if I go to CSV just to show you, I can pick, say, that file. Next, I'm not going to bring it in, but if I come in here, click on the settings, you can see the ignore missing columns option is now there inside Sisense, so we can actually decide to turn on or off the file. In here, you know, when you're connecting to a CSV file, you can actually set the delimiter should you want to pick text qualifiers, whatever it is that you're looking to bring in. So I'm actually not going to look for that data. So I'm going to ping in my usual sample. It's definitely a little bit slow this morning. Yeah. So let me pick in my Excel, and oh, that went one too far. Yeah. File upload, and I'll pick the files I've loaded up here from before. And hit next. And you can see how we can bring that data in, select the tables, and bring it in and bring it into my model. I think the Sisense system is slowing down for Christmas. So a little bit slow, but yeah, we'll get there. Okay, so once we bring that in, we can do a quick build. So we can build our data just to show it in the model. And you'll see while that's running over here, we've got the add perspective button. So add perspective is where we can create our views and our relationships of our data inside the system. So you can see here, if I want to create a perspective name. So let's say I'm taking my sales data there, but I want to give the accounts team a view. I can then say, create accounts team, put it in, and then I can pick which tables of that model I want to include. So I might say I'm going to bring in products and purchases, and I'm going to bring in sales, but that's all but I'm not going to bring in customer data. So then I can create that perspective. So I can say which data I want to bring in, you know, how I want to set it up, and what I'm going to bring in on the data. So you're then creating a perspective of the data for that group. So we have the accounts team now has their view of the data. We don't have to create a second model. We can actually just have a perspective on that. So again, it's just given that extra level of security without having to duplicate the data. We can look at the root model, which has all the tables, but the accounts team only has these tables. So if a dashboard is created, or if I build that model, it will then allow me to build out again, and I've got that dashboard, those models built. So you can then create a dashboard from that. So let that run for a second. So it's this option that then, and you can have as many perspectives as you want to set the system up in any way you want to here. So you can see here, there's now 26 tasks running because it's not only building my first model, but it's also building my perspective as well at the same time. Okay. While I'm doing that, I'm going to open up a new tab, which is my notebooks. That's running. Yeah, build succeeded. Yeah. So yeah, just to finish that. So if I go to my accounts team, we can see now I can create a dashboard from that perspective in there. I can, what did I call it? It was Sisense 23, wasn't it? Sisense 23, create, and now if I go to the data, you can see I only got the selected tables that I picked from that model. So it doesn't have to add in the extra data fields in the extra columns. It just picks the tables that we have picked from the perspective. So that way you're able to restrict the data for each department using the system. Just something else then on the data security to bear in mind. So when we have our model, we can look at the model, look at the dependencies, look what it's built on. If I go back to the root model, you can also then see we have in here, we can see our information, we can see our duplicates, and we can see our dependencies on that dashboard, and you can revert back. We go to the data tab. You can see now we're seeing Sisense 23, and it has the little tag on it that says, yes, there's a perspectives built on this. And if we look at our here, we can go data security. We can fire that up. And even now with the data model, we can set which fields are restricted to which columns. So again, we can still put our data security, which works on both the top node and also the perspective as well. So if I was to come in here and say, okay, I'm going to take products, and what I want is I only want certain users. So I might pick, the partner success team, apply. So I can set the security and say these guys are allowed to see everything, but anybody else who's not in the partner success team are not allowed to see that data. So you can actually restrict it, or you could get it down and say, well, they're only able to restrict to certain data inside the system. So these guys can see all information. These guys are restricted. And you can add as many user groups as you want with the system. That also will work at the perspective level. So that security runs down as well. And if I go into just to show you as well some of the other security settings. So if we come into our data groups in here, you can see inside Sisense, you can set up any groups that you want. So again, when we're talking about the inbuilt data security for multi-tenancy, you can come into Sisense, you can set up a build node, set up what you're going to use, which elastic cubes. So I could say now, okay, Sisense 23 that I'm after creating, which is gone somewhere. Well, let's pick another one here. So sample e-commerce, for argument's sake, I can then pick who it goes to. And also, as well as being able to set up the security and the user groups, you can also set the memory that you want to be able to set on that. So I could say, okay, for this user group, they're going to have, 3000 or whatever RAM as a reserve for them, or 16 gigs or whatever I want to set up. I can actually set that up inside the security. Also inside the user management, you can create your tenants. So if I want to add a tenant, if I want to set up that multi-tenant, create a new tenant, let's call it, data builders. You give it a URL of what that URL, you can add a user, an admin user. You can include a data group. So which data group do you want inside that tenant? And you're able to assign what licenses are used by that tenant. So again, if you're a company who is selling analytics or monetizing analytics to organizations, and you want to say, okay, customer X, I'm going to give them 3 designer licenses. I'm going to give them X space on my server, X memory, X RAM, and they're only able to get to this data. We can do that complete inbuilt multi-tenancy inside Sisense now. So completely secure, being able to actually lock down that data and how it's been used with the system. So this is really important. We have a lot of customers who are using Sisense to sell Sisense analytics. So this was being demanded by one or two particularly who wanted true multi-tenancy. They wanted a single server, but being able to divide their customers and have separate tenants, separate dashboards, separate data off that single server. So that's there now. And then just to go back to my notebooks that we were looking at. So if I have a look at the notebooks, we can create a notebook and show you with the notebook. So I go add new notebook. I'll call it Sisense 23, hit save. In here now, you can see this has changed from what I would have shown on my last demo. Previously, it would have just shown these live connectors, the data warehouses. But you can now see we can actually connect to Elastic Cubes, and there's the Elastic Cube I created there a second ago. And then now in here, we can actually run Python or query or SQL or sorry. So if I wanted to say run a query, I have one created earlier. I said on is now Christmas. You can see I can put the SQL inside. Now, if did I bring those tables in? I did. EU sales. Yes, I did. So, okay. So I can now run that SQL, and you can actually see the output of what I've done in SQL, directly writing the SQL inside the kernel and inside the application. Start the kernel. Yeah. So that should run. Why is it not running? It's taking a second. So it runs the SQL and it should give me a chart. And I'll also have then statistics on that data coming back, and it should come back. It's decided not to come back. But anyway, I have one I created earlier, so I'll have a look at that. So we look at demo 2. Okay, so you'll see there, if we edit notebook, we can see in that code, this one's coming from Snowflake. Queries have stopped. I must have done something that is changing this at the minute. Wanna know why? I go back. All right. So size design tree, query, edit notebook. I'll do a simpler query. Maybe it's made it too complex. So if I do select, select, and I'll have a look at my table. So I'll select customers. Yeah. Dot customer ID. Oh yeah. I'll take it from EU sales. So it's scroll down here. Yeah. Yeah. EU sales. Dot, and it's customer ID from EU sales. Oh, is that what I did wrong? Did I not thought about what warehouse to use? Where order quantity. This is why I don't use SQL. Order quantity greater than 4. Okay, so run SQL, and hopefully this time it should come back. There's definitely something after going on. I've broken it. I think I stopped something.
I think it knows it's a live demo, Kieran.
Yeah. No, it was working earlier. Something has changed that it stopped. Unless I just have a quick look at our own one, unless there's something wrong with that server. Kieran. No, that won't. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'm using the wrong server. Sorry. So okay, so this is this is the one I prepared earlier. Maybe it was that there is broken. So I have select count from here, so you can see the SQL, and it runs that count, which does a count of the customers, renames it to num customers, runs it, and then we're actually able to group the names by country name. So you can see the data comes out. We can see the statistics. So we can see num customers country name, and then we can create a chart of that data. So we can actually take the chart and create it and spit it out on the system. So you can actually come in and edit that chart. So with the SQL code, I could turn that, into a stack chart, or I could switch it and put it into a column. Again, reading the SQL, reading the SQL directly from the system and being able to bring it in. So we'll wrote our SQL up here, which is to bring in the things. So if I change that order quantity, say, to 3, and then run the SQL, you'll see now the chart changes on the fly. And you can also then add code to that. So if you want to add code, you can then call your Panda libraries. So I'll do a very simple bit of Python, because I'm not really a Python person. I can now take the output of that information and then run the Python on top. So in it, you can see it's going to run that Python, and it pumps out the same data, but I actually put a line in which was to print out the first customer, which is Ireland, in the console. So by using the print here, I'm able to interrogate that data. So we're then able to use all these Python and R libraries we can actually bring into the system to manipulate, to do better analysis, to do more advanced stuff on the system, as well as what you're doing before. So gives a great, and again, like with any dashboard, I can come in here and go country name, and I could pick, let's say it's that, and that, hit apply, and you'll see now the chart applies. So I have my ability to run my code. I can do it on both Elasticube and live data warehouses. I can view my data, and I can create visualizations. And of course, you can then embed those charts that you're creating in other applications. So it's a really useful tool for developers or for data scientists who want to be able to run more advanced analytics using code. Final thing I want to show is just because I always like showing it, is to simply ask. So to finish on a nice thing, so if I look at my retail demo here, you can, oh, that's not working. If I create, sure, I'll create a new demo. So if I create a new page, so I'll add a dashboard very quickly, a new dashboard. I'm going to pick the data source is going to be my retail. So sample retail. Oh, there it is. And I'm going to call it Sisense 23. Hit create and select data. So if I was just to do very quick revenue, where's it gone? Order revenue, advanced configuration. I want to make it a line chart. I want to add in the date, which is this. In years, I'll switch that to be months. So we can see I've created a very quick line chart with sales over time. And you'll see here straight away, we have our analyze it, which allows us put, trend and analysis on the dashboard. So we can do explanations, we can bring things in, look at breakpoints and see the information at those points and be able to analyze into it. But actually what we want to be able to do is in the dashboard is turn on simply ask. So if I go to my retail just to check, so if I look at sample retail, the Elasticube, okay, and in here you are able to turn on enable simply ask, which seems to be turned off at the minute. Data security. Why is that not on? Okay, so it should be on the dashboard. Sorry, I've lost my analytics. So I go to the analytics and oh, where did I do that? Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yes, I should be on my. Again, for using two different instances. So if I look at my analytics here, and I'll take that one there again just quickly. So you'll see on this dashboard then when you're simply asked turned on, we can actually come in here and ask any question we want. So we can go we can type in a question and go total cost by months and date, and it'll create that same widget that we were looking at, but I didn't have to create the I didn't have to do the actual configuration inside Sisense. I could just type in the text that I wanted to look at, and it would create the chart. You can import it, you can download it, you can export it. So that's the value of Simply Ask. All right. And I think that's me. Oh, yeah. So we've one final thing to talk about is Sisense have released the Compose SDK. So for those developers who are looking at an even easier way to embed or build dashboards with Sisense, with the Compose SDK, you can now build applications from Sisense components. You can focus on delivering the developer experience, and you can open the ecosystem. So it supports all the programming languages and frameworks that you want to use. So I think it's now gone out of beta, but you can look at creating these apps using the React framework, and actually Angular is now supported as well. And you don't have to go into Sisense. You can just write the code to create the output and create the dashboards. So we've actually started showing this to a number of customers, and it's been really well received, because actually for developers who don't want to go into Sisense, who just want to be able to create their own widgets, create their own dashboards through code, through React or through Angular, this is what can now be done with the Compose SDK. So Sisense brings you value beyond your analytics. So it allows you to create data your way. So you know, access to analytics no matter what the complexity. You can differentiate your product, and it helps you improve speed to action, so you can improve engagement and efficiency. And I think that's us. Is there any questions? We stop sharing here. Stop first.
No questions yet. Anyway, it's
Okay. I think we're just pretty much on time. So what we might do then is listen, thank everybody. We've had a lot of webinars this year, so great attendance. So really happy to have them, and we'll be starting up a new series. And yeah, watch your inbox in January for the planned webinars for next year.
Absolutely. Well done, Kieran.
All right. No probs. Okay. Listen, I thank Tanya for arranging everything. There's no other questions. Oh, is there not? Is that question?
no, just to thank you there for a great presentation.
All right, no problems. Okay, well, listen, we'll let everybody go, and have a nice day. And if we're not talking to anybody, have a happy Christmas, and we'll see you all in the new year.
Thanks,
Indeed.
everyone.
Thanks,
Cheers.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.